Wow, the Indiana Fever have traded NaLyssa Smith and got Sophie Cunningham in a three-way trade. NaLyssa Smith's departure from the Indiana Fever has everyone talking. After being traded to Dallas, she didn't hold back. Smith's final words to her old team have sparked major controversy. Meanwhile, the Fever have made a bold move by trading for Sophie Cunningham, a player who could redefine the team's future. Is this a game-changing trade, or just another failed experiment? What does this mean for Caitlin Clark, and does it set Indiana up for success? And I want to say this as respectfully as I possibly can, but I think that Indiana had to kind of pay a little to get rid of NaLyssa Smith. As sad as that sounds, and boy did they pay a hefty price, NaLyssa Smith's time with the Indiana Fever is officially over, and it didn't end quietly. After being traded to the Dallas Wings, she wasted no time making her feelings known. While most players keep things professional after a trade, Smith took a different approach. Instead of a simple thank you message or a classy farewell, she fired off a parting shot that had fans and analysts raising their eyebrows. Her words weren't just a goodbye, they were a direct statement about how she felt the Fever treated her. Excited to play for an organization that believes in me. That one sentence set the internet on fire. It wasn't hard to read between the lines. Smith felt like Indiana had given up on her. She felt undervalued, overlooked, and pushed aside. But was she right, or was this simply a case of a player not living up to expectations? Because while Smith was throwing shade on her way out, the Fever were making moves that signaled they were done waiting around for potential to turn into production. Enter Sophie Cunningham, a player whose arrival in Indiana might just be the best thing to happen to this franchise in years. Now Sophie Cunningham is a good player. She can shoot the three. She can three, and she's pretty good on defense. She's fast. I think the Fever are looking for the fast pace. I think bringing Sophie over is definitely going to spread the floor a lot more. But before we talk about Cunningham's impact, let's break down exactly why NaLyssa Smith's time with the Fever came to an end. Smith entered the league as the number 2 overall pick in the 2022 WNBA draft. Indiana saw her as a cornerstone piece, someone they could build around for years to come, and for a while it looked like they had struck gold. Smith's rookie season showed flashes of brilliance. She averaged 13 points and 8 rebounds per game, proving she could hold her own in a league filled with elite talent. The potential was there. The problem, it never turned into consistency. By the time the 2024 season rolled around, Smith wasn't the player Indiana had hoped she'd become. Her scoring dipped. Her rebounding numbers declined, but most importantly, her overall impact on the game started to fade. She went from a promising young star to a player who looked lost on the court. The mistakes piled up, defensive lapses became common. She struggled with shot selection. And when it mattered most, in clutch moments, she was often on the bench instead of on the floor for a team trying to turn the page and build a winning culture. Smith didn't fit anymore. That's the reality. Smith saw herself as a foundational piece, but the Fever were moving in a different direction. They wanted players who could adapt to their fast-paced, high-energy style of play. Smith, for all her talent, simply didn't fit into that vision. And that's when the trade talks started. It wasn't a matter of if Smith would be moved, it was only a question of when. And when the deal finally happened, sending Smith to Dallas and bringing Sophie Cunningham to Indiana, it became clear that the Fever weren't just looking for a fresh start, they were making a statement. Smith's reaction was immediate. She removed every mention of the Indiana Fever from her social media within minutes of the trade being announced. Then came the Instagram bio change, and then the not-so-subtle dig at her former team. For fans watching all of this unfold, there were mixed reactions. Some still believed in Smith's potential and felt Indiana gave up on her too soon. Others, they were glad to see her go, saying she wasn't the player Indiana needed. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Smith is still young, still talented, and in the right system she could turn things around, but Indiana didn't have the time or the patience to wait and see if that would happen. Because the Fever aren't playing the long game anymore, they want to win now, and that's exactly why Sophie Cunningham's arrival is such a big deal. So in the same day as they get Natasha Howard, they get Sophie Cunningham, possibly adding 2 starters while also bringing Kelsey Mitchell back, and in year 2 of Caitlin Clark. So the Fever are title contenders. Right now Cunningham brings something the Fever have been missing: a hard-nosed, no-nonsense, high-energy presence who doesn't just play the game, but changes the culture of a team. Her 3-point shooting alone makes her an instant asset, but her impact goes beyond the numbers. She's tough, she's fiery. She gets under opponents' skin, and most importantly, she's a winner. That's the kind of player you build a winning team around, and that's why the Fever made this trade for Caitlin Clark. This could be a game changer. Cunningham is the type of teammate who will have her back. She's going to knock down big shots, play tough defense, and bring an edge to the team that they desperately needed. And let's be honest, when you have a generational talent like Caitlin Clark, you don't waste time waiting for players to figure it out. You surround her with the right pieces immediately. That's what this trade was all about. Cunningham fits the modern WNBA game perfectly. She can play multiple positions, she can stretch the floor, she can guard the league's best perimeter players. Smith, on the other hand, she's still trying to find her identity in this league. That's the difference. The Fever didn't just swap players. They upgraded their mentality, their culture, and their ability to win games. Right now, the Fever's coaching staff saw the writing on the wall. Smith wasn't adapting to their system, and they weren't going to force it. So they went out and got a player who fits. It's that simple. Now the question is what happens next for Indiana. The pieces are falling into place. Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and now Sophie Cunningham. That's a core that can do serious damage for Smith. She's heading to Dallas with something to prove. Will she thrive in a new environment, or will her struggles continue? That's what we're about to find out. But one thing is for sure, Indiana is done looking backward. They're building for the future. And with Cunningham in the mix, that future looks a whole lot brighter. This trade wasn't just about replacing a player, it was about changing the entire trajectory of the franchise. And the Fever aren't looking back now that the dust has settled. It's time to really break down what this trade means for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever's future. Because let's be clear, this trade wasn't just about moving on from NaLyssa Smith, it was about reshaping the team around their new franchise star. Caitlin Clark is the most anticipated rookie in WNBA history. And Indiana had to make sure they were building a team that could complement her game. And that's exactly why Sophie Cunningham's arrival changes everything.